Imagine for a moment that an ancient book, forgotten and rejected by many religious traditions, contained profound secrets about the Messiah himself. What if this book, written thousands of years before the coming of Christ, had already predicted his arrival and his mission? This is the mystery of the Book of Enoch, a forbidden text that may have been one of the most influential writings of antiquity. But why was this knowledge suppressed? And more importantly, what is the relationship between Enoch and Jesus? Could it be possible that a forgotten prophecy is being fulfilled before the world's eyes? To understand this enigma, we need to go back thousands of years in time, to a period when the Sons of Enoch walked the earth. Enoch, one of the most enigmatic patriarchs of the Bible, was described as someone who walked with God and was no more, because God took him for himself. Unlike other biblical characters, he did not experience death, but was transferred to another reality. But what exactly does this mean? Some traditions believe that he was elevated to the heavens for a grand purpose, perhaps to witness future events and reveal mysteries that were not yet ready to be understood by humanity. Your book, the Book of Enoch, is not part of the traditional biblical canon, but it was widely known during the Second Temple period. However, something strange happened. Over time, it was systematically removed from sacred texts, and its reading became forbidden in many Christian traditions. But why? What did it contain that was so dangerous? Perhaps the answer lies in its incredible similarity to the messages of Jesus Christ. Among the many mysteries contained in the book, there is one that stands out: the prophecy of the Son of Man, a celestial figure who would come to judge the wicked and redeem the righteous. This is a frighteningly accurate description of Jesus' mission, and Christ himself often referred to himself as the Son of Man. But if this idea already existed in the times of Enoch, then where would he have received this revelation? Another intriguing question is the existence of the so-called Sons of Enoch. Little is spoken about this lineage, but there are indications that he not only had descendants, but also played a crucial role in transmitting spiritual teachings to future generations. Did Enoch's lineage survive the Great Flood? Did any of his descendants mingle with Noah's lineage, carrying with them secrets that would later influence the prophets and even Jesus himself? There is something even more astonishing. Enoch wrote about fallen angels, about a spiritual war in the heavens, and about the divine judgment that would come to restore order on earth. This aligns directly with Christ's teaching about the kingdom of heaven, the battle against evil forces, and the promise of redemption. The connections between Enoch and Jesus are so striking that many scholars have begun to question whether Enoch's teachings could have directly influenced the Gospels. However, this relationship is not limited to words and prophecies. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, discovered in 1947, fragments of the Book of Enoch were found, preserved by a mysterious community, the Essenes. This sect, which lived in isolation in the desert, believed they were preparing for the coming of the Messiah and practiced rituals very similar to those later found among the early Christians. But what may be even more shocking is that some scholars believe that Jesus may have come into contact with these teachings before beginning his public mission. If it's true, this means that Christ's message may have been deeply influenced by the writings of Enoch, or even that Jesus came to fulfill exactly what this patriarch prophesied thousands of years before. And here arises the question that could change everything. If the Gospels contain echoes of Enoch's prophecies, why did the Church decide to suppress this knowledge? Why was this book forgotten while others, such as those of Isaiah and Daniel, were preserved and considered fundamental to the Christian faith? What was there that could have transformed the understanding of Christ and his mission? Could the truth about the connection between Jesus and the Sons of Enoch have been concealed for centuries? What if this prophecy is still in progress? Enoch spoke about a future judgment, about a time when the Son of Man would return to complete his work. Could his words have anticipated not only Christ's first coming but also his second coming? If this is true, then Enoch's forgotten words not only pointed to the past, but also to our future. And the question we must ask ourselves is, are we prepared to recognize this truth? In the next section, we're going to dive deep into the Book of Enoch and unravel its prophecies about the Messiah. Did it really predict the coming of Christ? Or is there something even more astonishing hidden within these ancient words? If there were a book capable of revealing the deepest secrets about the Messiah, wouldn't it be widely available? It would be logical for the most important scriptures about the identity of the Son of Man to be studied by theologians and believers around the world. However, the Book of Enoch, one of the oldest texts to mention this celestial figure, was deliberately suppressed from the traditional Bible. But why? What does it contain that could challenge or even complement the narratives about Jesus? To understand the depth of this issue, we need to examine the content of the Book of Enoch and compare its prophecies with the Gospels. This mysterious text, dating back thousands of years before the coming of Christ, describes the rise of a being called the Son of Man, someone who would have authority over the angels and who would judge both the living and the dead. Does this description sound familiar? That's because Jesus repeatedly used this same title for himself in the Gospels. Now think about this. Why would Christ choose to identify with a concept that does not appear directly in the Old Testament canon, but is widely present in the Book of Enoch? If this text was known by the Jews of the time, could Jesus have been directly referring to the Enochian prophecies? Could he have been fulfilling something that was predicted long before, but was left out of the official scriptures? The Book of Enoch is divided into several sections, but two of them are particularly relevant to this issue: the Book of Parables and the prophecy of the Son of Man. The first describes the rise of a celestial being who would become an intermediary between God and humanity. He would be a divine judge, the one who would bring justice to the world. This fits perfectly with the mission of Jesus, who claimed that he came to fulfill the law and establish the kingdom of God. The second section speaks of a moment when the Son of Man would be revealed to the world, rejected by the wicked, and glorified at the end of times. This prophecy is almost identical to what we find in the New Testament, where Christ predicts his rejection, crucifixion, and eventual return in glory. And then the inevitable question arises: if the writings of Enoch are so similar to the Gospels, why were they excluded from the Bible? The answer may be in the book's content itself. The Book of Enoch not only speaks of the coming of the Messiah, but also reveals events that the Judeo-Christian tradition preferred to keep secret. It details the fall of the angels, the so-called Watchers, who descended to earth, had children with human women, and gave birth to a race of giants known as the Nephilim. This narrative suggests that the corruption of the world was not only moral but also genetic and spiritual. And according to some interpretations, the mission of the Messiah would be directly linked to this ancient battle against the descendants of these fallen angels. Here is the critical point. If Jesus came to restore order and redeem humanity, did his mission also include repairing the consequences of the rebellion of the fallen angels? Some scholars believe that the Gospels contain echoes of this idea. When Christ casts out demons and confronts impure spirits, he is not only healing physical ailments, but also confronting entities that could have origins in the ancient transgressions described by Enoch. Furthermore, the Book of Enoch describes a cosmic struggle between the forces of good and evil, in which the Son of Man plays a central role. He is depicted as a divine being who receives power from God to defeat the darkness and establish a new kingdom on earth. This vision is not much different from what we find in Revelation, where Jesus returns as judge and king to complete the work of redemption. But there's something even more intriguing. If this book had already foreseen Jesus' mission, did the early Christians know about it? The answer appears to be a resounding yes. Many of Christ's early followers considered the Book of Enoch as sacred scripture. In fact, some scholars argue that the very author of the letter of Jude, one of the books of the New Testament, directly quoted this text in his message about divine judgment. If this is true, then the relationship between Enoch and Jesus is even deeper than we thought. Christ himself may have been inspired by these ancient prophecies to reveal his identity to the world. But if this was the case, why did the church decide to reject this book? Some theories suggest that the exclusion of the Book of Enoch may have occurred because it challenged certain doctrines that later solidified in Christianity. Its detailed descriptions of fallen angels and their interactions with humans were uncomfortable for a theology that sought to emphasize the purity of divine creation. Additionally, the idea that the Messiah had already been so explicitly predicted could have generated theological conflicts over the need for other prophecies. However, the existence of this book in the Dead Sea Scrolls proves that it was still widely respected in the times of Jesus. This raises an intriguing question. Did Christ and his disciples know and accept the teachings of Enoch? If so, this would mean that the Gospels contain direct influences from this ancient text, which would change our understanding of the origin of Jesus' words. And there's a crucial detail. In several passages of the Gospels, Jesus refers to events that align with what was described in the Book of Enoch. When he talks about the days of Noah and compares this period to what would happen upon his return, he is citing a narrative that is fully explained only in the Book of Enoch. This cannot be a coincidence. But then, if there are so many evidences that Jesus was fulfilling the prophecies of Enoch, what does this mean for the future? Could it be that the second coming of Christ has also been predicted in this ancient book? If so, are we approaching that moment? The Book of Enoch not only describes the coming of the Messiah, but also warns of a time of great judgment and transformation. What if this ancient prophecy is still in progress? If Jesus really came to fulfill what Enoch wrote, this means that there are events about to unfold that could alter the course of human history forever. In the next section, we will explore one of the most enigmatic figures of the New Testament, John the Baptist. Could he have been an heir to the spiritual lineage of Enoch? His role in paving the way for Christ may have been even more profound than we imagine. In every great story, there is a forerunner, someone who paves the way for the protagonist. In the case of Jesus, this figure was John the Baptist, a mysterious prophet who emerged from the desert, wearing camel skin and feeding on locusts and wild honey. But who really was John? What do we know about his origins? And most importantly, was he connected to the Enochian tradition in some way? Many clues suggest that John the Baptist was not just an ordinary prophet, but rather a man who carried within him an ancient knowledge, a spiritual legacy that dated back to the times of Enoch. His message about repentance and purification, his preaching about the kingdom of heaven, and his baptism in the waters have direct parallels with the teachings found in the Book of Enoch. But how is this possible? First, we need to understand that John the Baptist didn't just come out of nowhere. He was part of a priestly lineage, and his family had a strong connection with the spiritual traditions of Israel. His father, Zechariah, was a temple priest, and his mother, Elizabeth, was a cousin of Mary, Jesus' mother. This means that John was not just any man. He was born into a context of profound spiritual significance. But John did not follow the traditional priestly path. He left the temple system and went to live in the desert, something unusual for someone of his lineage. And here's a fascinating detail. The community of the Essenes, a mysterious group that preserved ancient texts, including the Book of Enoch, also lived in the desert, near the Dead Sea. Could John the Baptist have had contact with this community? The Essenes were known for practicing purification rituals in water and believed in the coming of a Messiah who would bring divine judgment and restore order in the world. This aligns perfectly with John's message, who proclaimed, "Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is near." Furthermore, John's baptism was not just a symbolic act of spiritual cleansing. For the Essenes and followers of the Enochian tradition, water represented the separation between the corrupted world and a new beginning. Baptism was a way to break away from the past and prepare for the coming of the Messiah. This leads us to a crucial question. Was John the Baptist preparing people for something he already knew was about to happen? Jesus himself stated that John was the Elijah who was to come, This is a profound declaration. According to Jewish tradition, Elijah was one of the few men who, like Enoch, did not experience death, but was taken to heaven in a chariot of fire. Now, Jesus was saying that John the Baptist was the manifestation of Elijah. But if John was some kind of spiritual successor to Elijah, does this mean that he was also part of a prophetic lineage that traced back to Enoch? The answer may lie in John's own destiny. Just like the prophets of the past, he was persecuted and, in the end, executed. His death was not an isolated event, it was the fulfillment of a cycle. John came to announce the arrival of the Messiah and prepare the way for him. But just like the ancient prophets who denounced the corruption of the powerful, he was silenced. However, his mission was not in vain. He was the one who baptized Jesus, an act that symbolically united the Enochian tradition and the teachings of the Son of Man. It was at this moment, in the waters of the Jordan, that the heavens opened and a voice declared, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." But there's a detail here that often goes unnoticed. The Book of Enoch talks about the moment when the righteous would be revealed before the heavens. It describes a Son of Man who would be recognized by God and receive divine authority. The baptism of Jesus was not just a ritual, it was a public confirmation of his identity, something that directly echoes the Enochian prophecies. Furthermore, John preached that the Messiah would bring fire and judgment, separating the wheat from the chaff. These words are almost identical to the descriptions of the final judgment in the Book of Enoch. This suggests that John saw Jesus as the fulfillment of these prophecies, someone who came to restore justice and confront the spiritual forces of darkness. And there is yet another intriguing detail. Before his execution, John sent his disciples to ask Jesus, "Are you the one who was to come, or should we expect another?" Why would John ask this question if he had already baptized Jesus and witnessed the divine sign in the Jordan? Some interpretations suggest that John was expecting a Messiah who would fulfill Enoch's prophecy in a more immediate manner, a heavenly judge who would bring about the final judgment instantly. However, Jesus came with a different approach, first bringing redemption before the definitive judgment. This means that John the Baptist understood the connection between Jesus and Enoch, but perhaps expected everything to happen all at once. What becomes clear is that John the Baptist was not just a prophet. He was a transmitter of ancient knowledge, possibly rooted in the tradition of Enoch. His role was not only to announce the coming of Christ, but also to ensure that the world was spiritually prepared for this event. And this leads us to an even bigger question. If John was a link between Enoch and Jesus, does this mean that there were more people at the time who knew about this connection? The Essenes, John's disciples, and perhaps even the apostles themselves could have been influenced by this tradition. But if this connection existed, why was it erased from the official history of Christianity? Could it be that Enochian knowledge was too dangerous to be preserved? In the next section, we will explore the relationship between the Essenes and Jesus. Did Christ have contact with this mysterious sect? They preserved the Book of Enoch and believed in the coming of a Messiah. But what really happened between them? Imagine a mysterious group of holy men living in the desert, isolated from society, practicing purification rituals, and waiting for the arrival of a Messiah who would bring justice to the world. They wrote about ancient prophecies, about fallen angels, and about a Son of Man who would come to establish a new kingdom. Who were they? And more importantly, what was their relationship with Jesus? The Essenes were a Jewish sect that flourished in the centuries prior to the coming of Christ. They believed that the world was corrupted and that only those who purified themselves spiritually would be prepared for the kingdom of God. This group lived in the region of Qumran, near the Dead Sea, and their existence remained a mystery until 1947, when the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in nearby caves. These manuscripts contained copies of ancient biblical texts, as well as writings unique to the Essenes. Among them, something surprising: fragments of the Book of Enoch. But what does this mean? Could the Essenes have preserved forbidden knowledge that had been removed from the official tradition? The Essenes followed a lifestyle very different from traditional Judaism. They rejected the Temple of Jerusalem, believing it had become corrupt, and awaited the arrival of two messiahs, a warrior king and a spiritual priest. This idea is very similar to the descriptions in the Book of Enoch about the Son of Man, the one who would come to judge the wicked and restore justice. But there's something even more intriguing. The teachings and practices of the Essenes are incredibly similar to what Jesus preached in his ministry. Take a look at some of these connections. The Essenes practiced water immersion for purification, much like John the Baptist and Jesus. They believed in life after death, and the reward of the righteous, an idea not all Jewish groups accepted at the time. They spoke of the coming of a Son of Man to judge the wicked and save the righteous, a concept that Jesus adopted in his teachings. They rejected the priestly system of Jerusalem, just as Christ challenged the Pharisees and the Sadducees. They lived a communal life, sharing their possessions, exactly as the early Christians did after the resurrection of Jesus. The Bible does not directly mention the Essenes, but that doesn't mean they didn't play a role in history. In fact, some theories suggest that Jesus may have spent part of his youth among the Essenes, learning their teachings and preparing for his mission. This would explain why he suddenly appears at 30 years old, already possessing deep spiritual knowledge and a message that resonated with the Essene writings. Furthermore, John the Baptist, who was the forerunner of Jesus, lived in the desert and practiced a baptism reminiscent of the Essene rituals. Could John have been a member of this community? This would explain why he was eagerly awaiting the arrival of the Messiah and why he baptized Jesus. But there is something even more intriguing. In the New Testament, Jesus says something that seems to directly echo the Essene texts. "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God." Now, observe a passage from the Dead Sea Scrolls. "Blessed is he who walks in perfection and does not cling to the paths of wickedness." The resemblance is remarkable. This suggests that Jesus' words may have been influenced by this tradition. But if this is true, it means that Christ's teachings have deep roots in the knowledge preserved by the Essenes and consequently in the Book of Enoch itself. However, there is something that separates Jesus from the Essenes. His message was for everyone. While the Essenes lived in isolation, distancing themselves from the rest of society, Jesus went out to meet people. He healed the sick, welcomed sinners, and brought the message of the kingdom of God to all who were willing to listen. This shows that, although he may have had contact with the Essenes, his mission was much greater. But if the Essenes knew and preserved the Book of Enoch, and if Jesus may have had contact with them, why was this knowledge suppressed? The answer may lie in the power struggle within early Christianity. The first followers of Jesus were seen as a threat by both Jewish leaders and the Roman Empire. As Christianity grew, the church needed to consolidate a unified doctrine, and certain texts that could generate alternative interpretations were set aside. The Book of Enoch spoke of a cosmic battle between the fallen angels and God, something that could be interpreted as a revolutionary message against earthly authorities. In addition, the idea that the Son of Man would come as the supreme judge could incite political upheaval. Thus, keeping this book out of the official canon might have been a way to avoid conflicts. But this raises an even deeper question. If the connection between Jesus, Enoch, and the Essenes was suppressed, what else has been hidden from us? The discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947 opened a door to this lost knowledge. Now we know that the Book of Enoch was read and respected by communities awaiting the Messiah. This means that there is much more about Jesus' mission than we were taught. If Jesus truly knew and respected the Enochian teachings, then his message might have been even more profound than we thought. He came not only to save humanity, but also to complete a divine plan that started long before his birth, a plan that Enoch had already seen in his visions. This leads us to a final question. Did Jesus come only to redeem humanity, or also to confront the remnants of corruption that began in the times of Enoch? If the fallen angels and their descendants continued to influence the world, then Christ's mission was much more than just spiritual. It was also a direct confrontation against these hidden forces. And this leads us to the next big question. Were Jesus and Enoch's fallen angels destined for a final showdown? In the next part, we're going to explore one of the most controversial and frightening topics of this story, the relationship between Jesus and the fallen angels mentioned in the Book of Enoch. Could it be that the demons he faced had an older and darker origin than we imagined? What if I told you that Jesus' mission was not only to save humanity from sin, but also to directly confront the spiritual forces that have corrupted the world since the times of Enoch? In the Book of Enoch, we find a forbidden story, a disturbing account about fallen angels known as the Watchers, who abandoned their heavenly post and came to earth to mingle with human women. From this union were born the Nephilim, a race of giants who, according to Enoch, brought destruction and chaos to the world. This narrative was so controversial that many believe it was one of the reasons why the Book of Enoch was removed from the sacred scriptures. But what does this have to do with Jesus? The answer could completely change the way we view his mission. In the Gospels, Jesus often encounters unclean spirits and demons that seem to recognize him immediately. On several occasions, these fallen beings react with fear and call him Son of God, begging him not to expel them before their time. But what does this mean? Did they know they were destined to be defeated by him? In the Book of Enoch, there is a passage where the fallen angels plead with Enoch to intercede for them with God, as they know their fate is sealed. Now compare this to what happens in the Gospels. Whenever Jesus expels a demon, they beg for mercy. Could it be possible that these demons are the spirits of the Nephilim, the descendants of the fallen angels, condemned to wander the world? Let's analyze some direct examples from the Gospels. 1. The encounter with the demon-possessed man of Gadara. In one of the most enigmatic moments of the New Testament, Jesus meets a man possessed by a legion of demons. As soon as they see Jesus, the spirits cry out, "What do we have to do with you, Son of the Most High God? Have you come here to torment us before the time?" Matthew 8:29. This "before the time" suggests that these entities knew they were doomed to a future judgment. This fits perfectly with the prophecy of Enoch about the fallen angels and their descendants, who would be punished at the end of times. 2. The temptation in the desert. Before starting his ministry, Jesus was led to the desert, where he was tempted by Satan. But there's something odd here. Satan himself offers Jesus all the kingdoms of the world if he would just prostrate himself and worship him. How could Satan offer something like this? The answer might be in the Book of Enoch, where it said that the Watchers taught humanity forbidden secrets, establishing kingdoms and cultures based on their corrupted knowledge. This means that Jesus was rejecting not only the offer of earthly power, but also the domination that these beings had over the world since ancient times. 3. The hidden meaning of exorcisms. Every time Jesus casts out an unclean spirit, he is not just liberating an individual person, but symbolically reaffirming his authority over these beings. In the Book of Enoch, God declares that the fallen angels would be subdued and judged by the Son of Man. If Jesus was this Son of Man, then each exorcism was a small anticipation of this final judgment. But there's something even more striking: the way Jesus freed people from the influence of these spirits. While Jewish priests performed lengthy exorcism rituals, Jesus simply commanded the demons to depart, and they immediately obeyed. This suggests that Jesus had far greater authority than any other spiritual being, which aligns with the description in the Book of Enoch of the Son of Man as the supreme judge of the fallen angels. And if we look at the final events of Jesus' life, we realize that his crucifixion and resurrection may have been the decisive blow against these evil forces. At the moment of his death, the Gospels report that there was a great earthquake and that darkness covered the earth. Could this be a sign that something cosmic was happening? Could it be that by sacrificing himself, Jesus was breaking a curse that dated back to the times of the fallen angels? And this leads us to an even bigger question. Did Jesus not only defeat these entities in the past, but will he also come to destroy them definitively in the future? The Book of Enoch speaks of a great day of judgment, where the Son of Man will finally cast the fallen angels and their followers into an abyss of eternal fire. In Revelation, written centuries later, we find a very similar vision, Christ returning as the supreme judge, defeating the forces of evil once and for all. This means that the fight against the fallen angels is not yet over. What Jesus started in his ministry was just the first step. The final battle is still to come. But this leads us to an even deeper question. Who are the spiritual descendants of these fallen angels today? Do they still exert influence over the world? And if so, how can we recognize their actions? If Christ's mission included freeing humanity from the corruption brought by the Watchers, then his return may be linked to the moment when these forces try to restore their dominion over the earth. Are we living in the times described by Enoch, where the final battle between the Son of Man and the fallen angels is about to happen? If this connection between Jesus and Enoch is true, then the forgotten prophecies of this ancient book are still being fulfilled before our eyes. In the next section, we will delve into one of the deepest mysteries of this story, the true children of Enoch and their hidden role in early Christianity. Could there have been a group that carried this forbidden knowledge and directly influenced the early followers of Christ? Throughout history, certain knowledge has been preserved only by a select few. Ancient secrets, passed down in closed circles, were often hidden from humanity to prevent persecution or manipulation. But what if I told you that one of these secrets involves the identity of a mysterious group, the Sons of Enoch, and their connection to the early followers of Christ? If Enoch was taken to heaven without experiencing death, and if he received direct revelations about the future of humanity, then an intriguing question arises. Could there have been a spiritual lineage that preserved this knowledge throughout the ages? And more importantly, could this lineage have met with Jesus? The Book of Enoch tells us about a group of righteous people who would remain faithful to God, despite the widespread corruption caused by the fallen angels. These children of light, as some translations call them, would be the guardians of divine mysteries and were destined to witness the arrival of the Messiah. Now let's connect this to the events of the New Testament. In the Gospels, there is a group of Jesus followers who stand out for their dedication and understanding of his mission, the secret disciples. Among them, we have Nicodemus, a Pharisee who sought out Jesus in secret to better understand his teachings. There is also Joseph of Arimathea, who provided the tomb where Jesus was buried. But perhaps the most intriguing is the group that was already waiting for the arrival of the Messiah, even before he publicly appeared. Remember the Essenes, the mysterious sect that preserved the Book of Enoch in the Dead Sea Scrolls? They believed that they were part of a special people, separated from the rest of the world, waiting for the emergence of the Son of Man. Now think about this. If Jesus really had contact with the Essenes, that means he could have been recognized by them as the Messiah expected in Enoch's prophecies. But what about later? What happened to the disciples who might have had this connection with Enoch? In the first centuries of Christianity, there were groups that held hidden knowledge about the true origins of Christ's message. One of these groups was known as the Nazarenes, a branch of the early Christians who maintained a strong bond with Jewish and mystical traditions. They believed that Jesus came to fulfill forgotten prophecies and restore a divine order that had been corrupted. Could they be the true heirs of the Enochian teachings? Another piece of evidence of this connection appears in the apocryphal book called The Apocalypse of Peter, a text that circulated among the early Christians and contains astonishing descriptions about the fate of the righteous and the judgment of the wicked. This book bears a striking resemblance to Enoch's visions of the end times. This suggests that certain disciples possessed knowledge beyond what was officially recorded in the Gospels. And there's an even more disturbing detail. In the following centuries, many of the texts associated with Enoch and his prophecies were considered heretical by the official church. But why? What was in these teachings that threatened the traditional narrative? The answer may lie in the fact that Enoch's knowledge exposed the hidden spiritual battle that is still ongoing in the world. If Jesus came not only to save humanity, but also to confront the spiritual descendants of the fallen angels, then those who knew this truth could have represented a threat to the established power. The first Christians who followed this line of thought were persecuted, and many of their writings were destroyed. But fragments of this knowledge can still be found in some apocryphal texts and in the teachings of certain mystical groups throughout history. But what if this spiritual lineage had not disappeared? And if in secret the true Sons of Enoch still existed, preserving the hidden knowledge that connects Jesus to the oldest mystery of humanity? If this is true, then the return of Christ, as predicted in both the Book of Enoch and the Revelation of John, will be accompanied by the resurgence of this forgotten knowledge. The final battle between the Son of Man and the forces of the fallen angels may already be unfolding behind the scenes of the modern world. If the Sons of Enoch were the guardians of this secret in the past, who are the guardians of this knowledge today? Could we be on the brink of a global revelation that will forever change our understanding of Jesus' mission and the hidden truth in ancient prophecies? In the next section, we will explore the hidden connections between Jesus' parables and the Enochian writings. Could the words of the Messiah conceal secret messages about the fate of humanity? Get ready to uncover the truth that was in front of our eyes all along. Often, the parables of Jesus are seen merely as moral lessons, simple stories to teach about faith, compassion, and justice. But what if there was something deeper hidden within them? What if the Messiah's words were, in fact, keys to understanding a much older truth, a truth that dates back to the prophecies of Enoch? If we analyze the teachings of Christ from this new perspective, we begin to notice something fascinating. His words seem to echo directly concepts found in the Book of Enoch. But why would Jesus do this? Could he be revealing the continuation of an ancient knowledge hidden from most, but understood by those who were prepared to listen? Let's examine some of these parables and how they connect to Enoch's visions. 1. The parable of the wheat and the tares. The kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field, but while men slept, his enemy came, sowed tares among the wheat, and withdrew. Matthew 13:24-30. In this parable, Jesus speaks about two types of seeds: the wheat, which represents the children of the kingdom, and the tares, planted by the evil one. At the end of times, the angels will come to separate the righteous from the wicked. Now, take a look at a passage from the Book of Enoch. Then the Most High will command that the righteous be separated from the wicked, like gold is separated from clay, and that the children of light be protected. This vision of separation between the righteous and the wicked is a central theme in the Book of Enoch. Both in Enoch and in Jesus' parable, we see the idea that there is a hidden corruption in the world, a seed planted by evil forces that will grow until the day of final judgment. But what was Jesus really implying here? Could he be warning about the presence of the spiritual descendants of the fallen angels, infiltrated among the children of God? 2. The parable of the fishing net. The kingdom of heaven is like a net thrown into the sea, which catches fish of every kind. When it is full, the fishermen pull it to the shore, separate the good ones and throw away the bad ones. Matthew 13:47-50. This final judgment is also described in Enoch 104. In those days, the saints will be gathered and separated from the sinners, and the righteous will dwell forever in the kingdom prepared for them. Again, we see a message of separation between the true children of light and those who belong to the forces of darkness. But this image of fish being separated could also have a symbolic meaning. Could Jesus be referring to a time when the Sons of Enoch and the Sons of the Watchers would finally be revealed? If Jesus was quoting concepts from Enoch, this would mean that he was reinforcing what this patriarch had already prophesied thousands of years ago. This confirms that Enochian knowledge was never really lost. It was just hidden in the words of the Messiah himself. 3. The parable of the wicked and faithful servants. The master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour he does not know. Then he will punish him severely and give him the same fate as the hypocrites. Matthew 24:50-51. In the Book of Enoch 91:9, we read something very similar. The day of the Lord will come without warning, and all the wicked will be caught off guard and destroyed by eternal judgment. This idea of an unexpected return, where the righteous are rewarded and the wicked are punished, is one of the main themes of Enoch. Jesus himself constantly warned that humanity should be prepared, for the Son of Man would come like a thief in the night. But why this urgency? Could it be that he knew the final fulfillment of Enoch's prophecy was near? The Son of Man and the Great Judgment. Perhaps the most striking connection between Jesus and Enoch is in the way Christ referred to himself. In the Gospels, he repeatedly identifies himself as the Son of Man. This phrase appears more than 80 times in Christian writings, but there's a crucial detail. It already existed in the Book of Enoch, long before the New Testament was written. See what the Book of Enoch says about this mysterious figure. And behold, a Son of Man appeared, whose face was like that of an angel. He was exalted before the Lord of spirits and received dominion over all nations. The wicked will be destroyed before him, but the righteous will dwell in peace. Now compare this with what Jesus said about himself. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. Mark 13:26. If Jesus used this title knowing its origin in Enoch, it means that he saw himself as the direct fulfillment of the Enochian prophecies. He was not just preaching a kingdom of God, he was the very embodiment of the visions of the raptured patriarch. But this raises an even deeper question. If Jesus was the Son of Man described by Enoch, could his mission have been much greater than just redeeming humanity? If your identity was tied to this forgotten knowledge, then your arrival was not just an isolated event. It was part of a story that began in ancient times, when the fallen angels descended to earth and corrupted the creation. What does this mean for us today? If Jesus' parables directly echo the prophecies of Enoch, this implies that early Christianity had a deeper understanding of the spiritual battle than we realize. But why was this connection lost over the centuries? Did the early Christians know about this secret, but were silenced? Do the true Sons of Enoch still exist, preserving this hidden knowledge? And, most importantly, will Christ's return also be the final fulfillment of the Enochian prophecy? If Jesus was the Son of Man from Enoch, then the second coming will be the moment when all forces that challenged the divine order will finally be judged. And if Christ's words already contained this hidden warning, then the time to understand this truth may be running out. In the next part, we are going to unravel the hidden meaning of Christ's transfiguration. What really happened on that mountain? Was that event a definitive confirmation of his Enochian identity? Imagine witnessing something so extraordinary that it defies all human logic. 3 disciples climb a mountain with Jesus, and suddenly he changes before their eyes. His face shines like the sun, his clothes become whiter than anything seen on earth, and then 2 mysterious figures appear beside him, Moses and Elijah. This event, known as the Transfiguration of Christ, is one of the most enigmatic moments in the New Testament. But what if I told you that there is something much deeper hidden in this episode? Something that directly connects us to the visions of the Book of Enoch? To understand this, we need to analyze the elements of this event and how they fit into the forgotten prophecy about the Son of Man. 1. The ascent to the Mount and the paradox of Enoch. The Transfiguration takes place at the top of a mountain. This detail might seem irrelevant at first glance, but in the biblical context, mountains have always been places of encounters with God. Moses received the Ten Commandments on Mount Sinai, Elijah heard the voice of God on Mount Horeb, and now, Jesus is transfigured before the disciples on another sacred mount. Now let's look at a fascinating detail. In the Book of Enoch, the patriarch is also taken to a sacred mountain, where he has heavenly visions and sees the Son of Man enthroned in glory. This connection may suggest that the Transfiguration of Christ is a recreation of the moment when Enoch witnessed the glory of the Messiah, even before his arrival on earth. But there is something even deeper. In the account of the Transfiguration, Jesus not only becomes radiant, he literally assumes a form that resembles the descriptions of the Son of Man in the Book of Enoch. Translate these passages into English in a way that a native speaker would easily understand. Leave the equal sign where they are as they are separating. Matthew 17:2. And Jesus was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as light. Book of Enoch 46:1. And there I saw one who looked like a man, but his face was full of splendor like a seraphim, and his garments were as white as snow. The resemblance is striking. If Jesus was demonstrating his true identity in the Transfiguration, this means that he was revealing himself to be the one whom Enoch saw in heavenly visions thousands of years ago. But why did he choose this moment to do that? 2. Moses, Elijah, and the Lost Prophecy. Another intriguing aspect of the Transfiguration is the appearance of Moses and Elijah alongside Jesus. This has a profound significance. Moses represents the law, the first covenant of God with Israel. Elijah represents the prophets, those who announced the coming of the Messiah. But there is a hidden detail here. According to ancient Jewish traditions, both had mysterious destinies. Moses died, but his body was never found. Elijah never died. He was taken up to heaven in a chariot of fire. Now think about this. Enoch never died either. He was taken up just like Elijah, and his visions speak of the Son of Man being glorified. Could the appearance of Moses and Elijah alongside Jesus have been a sign that he was fulfilling Enoch's prophecy? In the Book of Enoch, we see that God has a plan to restore justice through the Son of Man. Now Jesus is being revealed as this Son of Man at the very moment when Moses and Elijah appear by his side. This means that he was showing his disciples that his mission was not only to fulfill Jewish prophecies, but also to manifest Enoch's forgotten vision of the glorified Messiah. 3. The voice from heaven and the confirmation of prophecy. During the Transfiguration, a voice from heaven declares, Matthew 17:5, This is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. Now compare this with Enoch's vision. Enoch 69:27. And the voice of the Most High was heard saying, Behold my chosen Son, the one who will bring justice to the earth. This is one of the most direct connections between the Gospels and the Book of Enoch. The same voice that Enoch heard in the heavens now manifests itself before Jesus' disciples, confirming that he is, indeed, the one who was announced centuries before. And then, everything returns to normal. Moses and Elijah disappear, Jesus resumes his human form, and the disciples descend from the mountain. But something has changed. They now knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that they were in the presence of someone much greater than a mere prophet. They witnessed with their own eyes the secret revelation that only Enoch had received before. 4. What does this mean for the future? If the Transfiguration was the proof that Jesus is the Son of Man described by Enoch, this means that his prophecies about the final judgment are also true. In the Book of Enoch, we see that the Son of Man would return to conclude the judgment of the fallen angels and the wicked. This aligns directly with John's revelation, where Jesus returns as a divine judge. This means that the Transfiguration was not just a demonstration of power, it was a preview of what is to come. The disciples saw Jesus glorified because he was showing them how he would return at the end of times. This leads us to the final question. If the Son of Man was revealed on that mountain, are we approaching the time when he will be revealed to the entire world? And furthermore, if Jesus fulfilled part of Enoch's prophecy during his first coming, could his second coming be the complete fulfillment of this ancient revelation? If the words of Enoch and Jesus are true, then the time to recognize this connection is running out. The events described in the Book of Enoch and in Revelation may be about to unfold before our eyes. In the next and final part, we will explore the final judgment and the fate of humanity. What will really happen when the Son of Man returns? And do the Sons of Enoch still have a role to play in this cosmic conclusion? Since the dawn of time, humanity has always sought answers to the ultimate fate of existence. What will happen at the end of times? What will divine judgment be like? Is there an invisible battle happening between cosmic forces? Both in the Book of Enoch and in the New Testament, we find a prophecy about the return of the Son of Man to judge the living and the dead. But what exactly does this mean? If Jesus is the fulfillment of Enoch's visions, then his second coming will not just be a spiritual event, but the closing of a cycle that began before the flood, when the fallen angels corrupted creation. Now, let's connect these pieces and understand how the final judgment will be the fulfillment of Enoch's forgotten prophecy. 1. The return of the Son of Man and the judgment of the fallen angels. Book of Enoch 46, 3-4. This is the Son of Man who brings righteousness, in whom all wisdom dwells. He will crush the powerful kings and cast the wicked into a blazing fire. Matthew 25, 31-32. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate them one from another, just as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. Here we see an exact correspondence between the visions of Enoch and the words of Jesus. The Son of Man will come with power and glory and will make a judgment that will not only be human, it will be cosmic. This means that Christ's return is not just an event for humanity. He will also come to finally judge the fallen angels and their influences on the world. In the Book of Enoch, God declares that the watchers will be imprisoned and judged at the end of times. In Revelation, Jesus is portrayed as the one who will return to cast Satan and his followers into the endless abyss. This means that what started in the times of Enoch will be concluded at the second coming of Christ. But how does this affect humanity? 2. The separation between the righteous and the wicked. In the Book of Enoch, the righteous are referred to as the sons of light, those who have remained faithful to the Creator. They will be rewarded and will reign alongside the Son of Man. On the other hand, the wicked, who followed the paths of the fallen angels, will be cast into darkness. Enoch 1:9. And he will come with 10,000 saints to execute judgment upon the wicked and destroy those who have corrupted the earth. Matthew 13:41-42. The Son of Man will send his angels, and they will remove from his kingdom all who do evil. Then the wicked will be thrown into the furnace of fire, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. The message is clear. There will be a moment of separation. This means that the spiritual battle between the lineage of Enoch and the lineage of the fallen angels is about to reach its climax. Jesus himself warned that in the last days, the world would be as corrupt as it was in the times of Noah, the same period when the Watchers fell and spread their influence. This suggests that the final battle will be the conclusion of what began in the times of Enoch. But what will be the final destiny of humanity? 3. The eternal kingdom and the new earth. After the judgment, both Enoch and the Gospels describe the creation of a new world where justice and truth will reign. Enoch 91:16. And then there will be a new earth where the righteous will live and rejoice forever. Revelation 21:1-4. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there will be no more death, nor sorrow, nor pain. Here is the greatest mystery. If Jesus is the manifestation of the Son of Man seen by Enoch, then the promise of an eternal kingdom is not just symbolic. It has already been decreed since time immemorial. But there's something even more astonishing. If Enoch's teachings were hidden and are now re-emerging, this could be a sign that we are approaching this final time. If the Sons of Enoch were the guardians of this knowledge and, over the centuries, kept the hidden truth alive, then perhaps their mission has not yet ended. 4. What should we do now? If we are truly on the brink of fulfilling Enoch's prophecy, then humanity stands before a final choice. Continue on the path of corruption and follow the influences of the fallen angels. Acknowledge the truth that has been hidden and prepare for the kingdom of the Son of Man. The question that remains is, are we ready to recognize that Jesus not only fulfilled the prophecies of the Old Testament, but also those that were suppressed? If Enoch was taken to the heavens to witness the truth, and Jesus was sent to fulfill it, then now, at this exact moment in history, we may be living in the time of the great revelation. Whatever the future holds, one thing is certain: the knowledge that was hidden is resurfacing, and the truth is being restored. The final battle is drawing near. The children of Enoch and the followers of the Son of Man play a crucial role in this outcome. Now there's just one question left. On which side of the story will you be when the Son of Man returns? Conclusion. The Book of Enoch is not just a forgotten account of the past. It may be one of the greatest warnings for our present and future. The words of Jesus not only echo his prophecies, but seem to be the very fulfillment of them. If this knowledge was suppressed, it is now re-emerging so that we can understand the greatness of the divine plan. What began in the times of Enoch was partially fulfilled in the first coming of Christ and will be completed in his second coming. The Son of Man is coming, and this time he will not come as a lamb, but as a supreme king and judge. The forgotten prophecy has finally been unveiled. Now the decision is ours. Mind Unfettered, now I want to hear from you. After all that we've explored here, is the secret connection between Jesus and Enoch's prophecies clearer to you? Do you believe that Christ's second coming will be the ultimate fulfillment of Enoch's visions? Comment below, as your viewpoint is essential for this grand collective manifestation of knowledge. The truth cannot be contained, and together we are bringing this light back. Leave your comment so that this message can strengthen and reach those who are ready to see beyond what we were taught. But don't stop here. What else could be hidden about Jesus? Is there an even darker secret within the Vatican itself? Click on the video on your screen now and discover The Forbidden Secret of the Vatican, Hidden Truth about Jesus. The revelation continues, and you can't miss it.